Good morning, everyone. We're going to look at conversion graphs today, a little bit of a build up from ratio and proportion. Please, can you make sure that you have definitely finished yesterday's task? That's the one on the basics of ratio and proportion before you start this one, so that you can understand the link between things that we're going to talk about. So firstly, you want to think about what a conversion graph, well, what it is and what they're for. A conversion graph is a line graph, which is used to, and I'll show you some in a second, used to convert between different units. So for example, it could be converting between pounds and euros, or dollars and euros. It could be converting between kilograms and pounds. The units have to be different, but they have to be measuring the same thing. So units of length, units of currency, something like that. But it's a way of reading a line graph to convert between two different units. So let's have a little look. So the first one that we've got here is a conversion graph between kilometers and miles. You can see kilometers are on the y-axis and miles are on the x-axis. So this line here, and it doesn't always, not all conversion graphs go through zero, go through the origin. We're going to look at that in a second. But you can see that this line plots for us the conversion between miles and kilometers. So for example, if I want to read and I want to work out what, say, 30 miles is in kilometers, I can draw a line up to 30 where it meets the line. I can then go across, and as long as my line is straight, I can then use that to work out how many kilometers. So 30 miles would be approximately, what do you think? Pause the video and just read that line graph. What do you think it should be? Okay, so approximately, and it isn't quite perfect, approximately 30 miles is about between 45 and 50 kilometers, depending on how accurate you are. Let's look at another one. Let's look at, let's go for 140 kilometers. So I'm going to go on the kilometers line. I'm going up to here. I'm going to go draw my line going across. Now, the thinner the line you draw, remember, you're not going to get a chance to draw these ones yet, but there is a drawing task in the extension. The thinner the line, the more accurate you are. So we've got our line going across from 140 kilometers. It then has to go down, and it's a bit more inaccurate doing it on the computer, but we go to here and pause the video and just read, what do you think 140 kilometers is in miles? Okay, so looking at that, I would say it would be probably in the region of between 185 and 188 miles when you're converting between 140 kilometers. So you can see how this is linked to ratio, because now we can start to think, well, if I know that 140 kilometers is, let's say, 87 miles, I can start to work out, well, I know that 280 kilometers, for example, and I use the conversion graph, but I can actually start to think, well, maybe I can do this without it as well, so that we can go to 174 miles approximately. Okay, let's go down. Let's look at another one. This is going to be quite a quick instruction because I think this is quite straightforward. Now you can see when we're converting between Celsius and Fahrenheit, two different units of temperature, you can see that the line on this conversion graph does not start at the origin. And that's true of lots of different conversions, but this one in particular, Celsius and Fahrenheit. If you have ever been to America, they'll read their temperatures in Fahrenheit. Anywhere in Europe generally is Celsius. So it's differences, and sometimes, so for example, in America, they might say it's in the 90s. That does not mean it's 90 degrees C, because we would be in serious trouble. So let's do a few here. What you might want to do, if you've got a ruler to hand, you're definitely going to need one in the task. Pause the video, get a ruler, and work out for me a couple of different temperature conversions. Can you work out 60 degrees Celsius? I want to know what that is in Fahrenheit. And I want to know what 180 degrees Fahrenheit is in Celsius. So do those two conversions, use a ruler, pause the video, and have a go. I know it's a little bit difficult when it's on the screen. All right, let's look at these two units then. Let's just move this over slightly so I can draw. Right, so we've got 60 degrees C. Well, degrees C is on the x-axis down at the bottom, so I go up from 60. You'll have to forgive me that the line is slightly off. That's just how the iPad works. We're looking at the right-hand side of this line, and we're going across here. So approximately 60 degrees would be, it's in between 125 and 150. Well, that jump is 25, so let's say half of it. let's say it's approximately 140 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately. Now, if you've got something slightly more or slightly less, don't worry, that's totally fine. The gradient on the line is not particularly easy to read. Not the gradient, sorry, the scale. Right, 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's rub this one out so we have a bit of clarity. 180 degrees. Let's go across now. 180 degrees is quite difficult because we have to estimate where it's going to be. Again, we know that the jump between 175 and 200, well, that's 25 degrees. So if we're going for 180, it's got to be very close to 175. So I'm going to go for about here and go across and then go down. There we go, nice straight line-ish. So there, I'm going to say that we're looking at the outside of my line. I'm going to go for about 83. I'm not saying these are accurate. I'm saying that using the graphs that we've got, this is what it's reading at. So 83 degrees. Okay, let's do one more. And this one, again, this will feature in our task a day. It's between pounds and euros. So we're talking about pounds sterling and euros, so the money that lots of countries in Europe use. And this one does go through the origin, and that's because if you have £0, you also have €0, whereas if we're looking at the graph above, if you have 0 Celsius, you actually do still have Fahrenheit, because we can deal with minus numbers very easily there. But anyway, so converting between pounds and euros, let's pick a value. Why don't we go for, can you find for me the value of what you think £60 is? Obviously this changes every day, but for this amount at the moment, £60. And can you also find for me, please, what you think 90 euros is worth? Okay, pause the video, use a ruler if you need to, and just go across and see what you can find out. Okay, so let's have a look. So we've got £60 that's going up here. There we go, across to there. Again, apologies that my line is a little bit off. The iPad is a little bit twitchy. And that is, I would say, more likely to be £60 is approximately 66 euros, maybe 67. If you've got something around that, 68 is fine, then that's fine. There is a margin of error on all of the questions. So when you're entering them onto the Google form, if you get it within 2 or 3, it's usually right. Okay, the last one then, we've got our 90 euros. So let's find 90 euros. We go across on this nice straight line here, and almost straight away, we can go straight down here. And this one's nice and easy. Should be about £80. Again, if you've been slightly more or less, then that's fine. If you've got 78, 79, 80, 81 or 82, that's totally fine. Okay, so now, what do we need to remember when we're doing the task? You must read the scales really carefully, obviously estimate, but think about what the size of the jump is between the 2 numbers that you've actually been given. Also think about on the questions, you might have some lines pre-drawn for you in between the 2 jumps. Think they'll always be, those numbers will always be 1s, 2s, 5s or 10s. When you're writing your answers, you must include the units. This time I've set a little thing on the Google form that it will mark it wrong if you do not use the unit, but you only have to use the shortened version of the units. And for the last bit, you must use a ruler to read and to draw the conversion graphs. If you get to the extension, there is a drawing challenge. There's quite a lot of marks in the drawing part of it, and you won't get many marks if you don't submit some working out to me. If you're having any problems putting it onto the Google form, please get your parents to email it to me or email it yourself, and I'll count that in. But if you get to the extension, you are going to have to draw those conversion graphs very carefully, use appropriate scales and all the things that you know about. Okay, off you go, guys.